I'd like to welcome you to the February 5th, 2013 Village of New Paltz Planning Board. I shall remove my Mets cap. It's 7:01. Call the meeting to order. The agenda has 3 items. The first is a continuing review of conditions at junction of Lent Drive and George Danskin Way. The second is a review of the draft planning board budget, and then finally the adoption of draft planning board meeting minutes for January 22nd meeting. So, just to, Kurt, is it true that we don't have any new paperwork for the Lent?
Only the memorandum that I issued via email.
Okay. To you all. Okay. So the issue is that there is now a gate somewhere near the village-town border at the junction of Lent Drive and George Danskin Way. Is it true? It's the way? Yes. And the planning board, when it issued the site plan approval, whatever year that was apparently specific in calling that the road where those two roads meet to be a secondary access road. And Mr. Rocco found his notes from that meeting where it was quite clearly stated that it be a secondary access road, not an emergency access road. And in fact, could you repeat what you said about the that it's...
Well, let me read to you from a letter.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce the rest of the board.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Here we go. Michael Zerler, Rich Steffens, Tom Rocco, and Liz Harshaw. Our secretary this evening is our village clerk, Katie Doyle Bunker. Thank you. And my name is Maurice Whiteman. I'm the chair. Okay, Mr. Rocco, please.
Well, this is a letter to the village planning board from Walter Kubrow, senior project engineer for the project, which was the development of this Woodland Pond and this road. On behalf of the applicant, Kingston Regional Senior Living Corporation, also called Woodland Pond, and to clarify our previous submittal, we respectfully request that the site plan be amended to allow for the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, even though the secondary access road can only be currently utilized for emergency vehicles. Even though, while the current configuration of the road is passable for such emergency vehicles, the geometry does not currently conform to accepted standards that would serve regular daily traffic. The Ermine Lane temporary construction access drive could also be used for emergency vehicles if necessary. And then he goes on to say a culvert would be necessary. Large construction vehicles use this access during construction, and emergency vehicles could also use it if necessary as a backup. However, the geometry of this road was not designed based on any standards and should not be used for regular daily traffic. So what he was asking for in this letter was the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, even though this road does not yet meet the standards for regular daily. And
as I recall, and you and Michael can correct me, the CO was issued, and it wasn't until recently that the lawyer property, L-O-Y-E-R, Mr. Lawyer's property,
Mr. Lawyer,
was, there was a lot line revision, or he sold some of it to Woodland Pond, I guess, to make the road suitable for larger vehicles and so on. So that has been taken care of, that it is now suitably configured for larger vehicles to pass safely. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if that was the...
I believe that's why the lawyer left. Isn't that correct, Mr.?
I believe it is.
Yeah,
I believe it is.
That's my recollection. I was here I don't think I was a member at that time. I was here as the liaison to the ENCC, or the planning board from ENCC, but I do remember that happening.
There's just another, I think quite relevant item on here, which is the short environmental assessment form It says describe the project briefly. And it says the project involves a temporary emergency access drive to be used until the approved connection to Lent Drive can be constructed as designed. I think any reasonable reading of that would suggest that it was intended to be sufficiently wide and in compliance with standards to allow for traffic other than emergency traffic.
It's quite a leap to think that we should attach reason to these things, but okay. All right, so anyhow, we've had a significant amount of email correspondence among planning board members and Kurt, and I forgot who else, maybe George. And the last thing that I remember writing was something like, there doesn't seem to be anything coming from an aggrieved party other than Michael, who noticed that there's a gate on the road that he expected to be able to pass through. Is that, am I stating that correctly, Michael? Mm-hmm. So, as such, I thought that it's probably not appropriate for a planning board to take any action now until someone from Woodland Pond or Lent Drive comes to us with some sort of a complaint or application for something, or goes to ZBA or goes to village board. But it seems like it's going to be an issue. Oh, there was also some concern about, is the gate on town property, meaning Lent Drive, or on village property, meaning George Danskin Way, or right on the borderline, which is some drawing I saw indicated. The town did build this thing at the request and with the payment from some residents on Lent Drive, because they were upset with how much traffic was coming through. So, if Woodland Pond, I think, if Woodland Pond wants to press this, then they should probably go to the village board or the town board and say, what happened to my secondary access road? Now, that's what I think. What do you guys think? What sort of, Michael, you're the one who started this thing, so what do you think about where we are now, or what we should do?
Well, I don't like the idea that the town would go ahead and do this without being cognizant of the existing site plans, both Lent Farms and Woodland Pond.
Is it possible that they just weren't? I mean,
no, they definitely were, because the building inspector informed the town board and the town board's attorney that this was the case.
What was the case? That there was a secondary access
if
road?
they put the gate up, it would be in violation of the site plans.
Oh, okay.
And they...
Our building inspector or their building
No,
inspector?
the town building inspector.
Okay.
Because at that point it was purely a town matter. Because residents of Lent Farm had gone to the town board. I guess, although we may not need to take any specific action, I don't want to just leave it out there sort of unresolved. It would be nice to know if the town has a specific schedule for what it is they intend to do that would allow them to then make a decision about the gate.
Right.
Because my understanding back from last September is that this whole thing was supposed to be part of a process to get that road up to standard.
Yes.
And it largely has been. It was my understanding at the time that there wasn't going to be a gate, but then it appeared. So and the town keeps, from what I hear, their intent is to have it be temporary. But
until what?
I don't know. I guess that's a question that we can find out. The building inspector couldn't answer it.
So, as I also, I think, mentioned in email, we don't do enforcement here at the planning board. And we can't really tell them to do it, tell the town or anybody to do anything about this. And the letter that you drafted was to give to the village board, I believe, to give them those facts. And I don't know, well, Who else has something to say about this or to ask about this? I'm sorry, I didn't introduce you to the assembled millions. Kurt Lavala is our director. Now I'm gonna director of planning, building, and environmental services.
Nice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've tried to, in between these meetings, I tried to write as best I could to the village planning board to provide information. And of course, I'll reiterate what I said last time, that it's while the residents of Lent Drive do show the gate at once in the town and the village. They're very astute. So they astutely placed it in the town and the village so that it would be necessary that the town and village get together. However, I don't believe.
Do we know that it's?
No, and actually that can be. I have a feeling that that the town constructed it in the town within this area, within this Lent Farm cul-de-sac extension area.
Yes.
So they did not construct it in the area affected by our site plan in the village, nor in the village incorporated
Right.
area. Although I do understand why the residents of Lent Farm subdivision showed it in both, because they realized that it probably would take.
Maybe, or maybe it was just an oversight, but whatever.
Well, yes, but I think the town, actually I think it's not even a matter of inches or feet as far as where the municipal boundary is in my visual assessment. So if there were to be some real dilemma over that, it could be surveyed or something.
Right. So, I'm stumped. What is your opinion about what? Oh, the question of where the gate is has been discussed, including just now. And what I said, I think in email, was that I don't think that matters right now, because they can always build another gate only on town land. And therefore, we have no jurisdiction of it, but it still blocks our access, the village access, the Woodland Pond access to a secondary.
My understanding is it does not block emergency access,
Okay.
The gate does not block emergency access?
which is significant.
How does that happen?
I don't know the actual, I don't know how it was constructed or how it was coordinated with emergency responders, but I do believe that was considered, rather than suddenly barring them from using that.
Well, when I went through the gate, there was no lock, there was no mechanism. So if that's the case, that's how emergency access can get through. They could just push right through it.
Right.
I
I just got out, opened the gates, drove through, and that was that.
Right.
So,
Because you went
but
there.
I don't know if that's changed.
I went there yesterday to take a look at it, and it's a small, kind of like a carabiner clip,
Okay.
and not a twist tie, a zip tie. So someone could just, if it needed to be accessed, could unhook it and then give it a push open. Although on the bottom part, it looks as though you would have to give it a really good push to get it out of two grooves that are on either side
Okay.
of the posts. But I believe that in an emergency situation, if a large fire truck were to come by, they could just hit it and open it.
Mhm.
So you can drive the truck through?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's designed to kind of have that latch thing break.
It would break away without doing any damage to any kind of vehicle. It's plastic.
It's like Hollywood rather than New Paltz now.
I think the point comes down to, one, if there was a gate needed there's a process by which they could have come to the planning board and had the site plan altered, if that's what was needed.
Well, but
That wasn't done. There was a unilateral decision made to change a site plan, which,
the
If this had been a-
party to it, Rich.
I don't care who the party to it was. The site plan is Woodland Pond site plan.
Yes.
Woodland Pond said that they had a right of way through to the Lent Farm Road. Must have demonstrated that, to the planning board to have approved it. They had an obligation to complete it and recognize their obligation to complete it
Yes.
in these letters.
Right.
And now all of a sudden someone has blocked that.
Yes.
Now, if this had been a fire exit in a movie theater, we wouldn't be standing here discussing it.
Right, the building department would.
But it just
right.
happens to be a housing development, so we've got plenty of time to discuss it and who really cares about the liability. It's what it's beginning to sound like. The town just went in and put a gate across an emergency exit. What justification did they have to block that emergency exit?
I don't know the answer to that.
I
And so-
can't think of one.
Right, so, but my question remains, what's our role in,
Well, I agree with you 100%. We are not a policing agency. That's not our job.
Guess I'll,
I think the fact that we're more informed than maybe other people about these things make us a better watchdog, or a more astute watchdog. But we're no more of a watchdog than Jason or the cinematographer is. I mean, we are all members of this community. Somebody goes over there and blocks that road. It should be brought to the attention of the people who can police it, which are the building inspectors. Or in this case, there's an obligation on the part of Woodland Ponds to make sure that their site plan is a safe one. They agreed to it. It's up their obligation to make sure that that road is safe. If they needed a year to construct it or 2 years to construct it, and we had agreed to that, or if we just agreed to this nebulous, make your best effort, but never was there an agreement that said block it.
right.
And so to just say, you know, well, whose fault is it? Is it in the town,
I'm
in the
not
village?
so concerned about whose fault it is.
It doesn't matter
I'm
where it
concerned
is
about
either.
What the path to remedy should be.
Well, we can't
And
shut
that's the
Woodland
impetus.
Ponds down.
No, we can't do anything like that. But what I'm asking, my question in email was, since we do not do enforcement, since nobody from Woodland Pond came to us and said they've been offended or something has been compromised, what do we do? Now, Michael brought this to our attention, but what then? I mean,
Well, I guess that's it. Who enforces our site plans? The enforcement, I think, goes to
The
the building
building department.
inspector.
Yes.
That's the Department of Planning, Building and Environmental Services, yes.
Enforce the site plan.
Well, actually, it's.
Now, the answer to it might be a recommendation coming back from them saying, let's review that original site plan and make these changes. But at this point, enforce it. At least cover our tushes. Because I think there's a certain amount of liability we have out there by allowing this to even exist.
Well, actually, if it does block emergency access, for example, if pillars were installed and emergency response equipment, including large fire trucks, could not get through, I think if that is the case, I think that is immediately significant. And I'm going to check into that if the board would like me to. I'll do what I have to. It obviously involves contacting folks at the town and asking. I'm not empowered to, nor is our building inspector empowered to enforce conditions outside of our village boundaries. I can see from being here just a short while working for New Paltz that there is some camaraderie between the town and the village. In places like Westchester County and Nassau County, these are called border wars. And they're written about in planning and land use law publications an awful lot.
Kurt, it has nothing to do with the town. It has to do with Woodland Ponds. They're the ones who said they had the agreement to cross the Len Farm. They're the ones who have the right-of-way. It's not up for us to enforce their right-of-way. Our agreement is with them. It has nothing to do with the town. Now, if they came back and said there's nothing we can do, the town put this thing in, they should come to us complaining maybe, which I think was in part your, but they must be giving some sort of tacit approval to this thing.
I recall this discussion from our last meeting too, and after the work I've done looking at it, I can't say much more than I did last time and by email in between. And one of those things is until that segment of Lent Drive, we're not talking about Danscombe Way, until that segment beyond the temporary cul-de-sac is dedicated and accepted, it is not known whether the gate will remain or not. And there's no, I'm not going to, speaking of liability, I'm not going to advocate the general traffic, the general public use a road that's not dedicated and accepted.
Well, who's going to take the dedication of that?
The town, there's no other entity.
The town is going to take the dedication of that section.
Lent Drive
There's no other
belongs
entity
to
in
the
the town. It's within the town.
But the land that it crosses over,
No, the land that it goes to,
yeah,
George Danskin Way,
yeah.
is a private road. It's not
In the
dedicated.
village.
Which is another oddity, really, that wasn't requested or required for dedication.
So that developer of Lent Drive is gonna complete that road right up to the edge of,
I don't believe the developer of Lent Drive could be anywhere now, and developers are not bound to come back years
Right.
later. I mean, they often go on to the next project. Therefore,
So
I
this
believe
is
that it's
your
an agreement
drive.
they had to
Correct.
allow
And this
And
is,
this is
Woodland Farms to
from
complete
that
that,
same era.
the area from the end of the cul-de-sac as it existed to the municipal boundary, which also happens to be the property boundary. So they have some form of permission or authorization to complete that road, and of course have it dedicated as part of the town's, as part of the town.
but here's where I keep getting lost in this, in the terminology. It was never required that George Danskin Way, in the village section of this whole thing, ever be built to the standards of an acceptable road.
That's because it's a private road, just as it was planned and
But the
intended.
piece that's in the town, you're telling me,
is Lent Drive.
has to be
It's a little-
built, has to be built to town specifications.
Yeah,
And
it's
that-
That's
a, it's a little,
that's
it's a
a
little
town road.
connector from the cul-de-sac to the.
To the extent that temporary cul-de-sacs are, there's land reserved for future extension to a property line, or in this case, a property line happens to be a municipal boundary, it is very common, if not universal, for that to become a town road so long as the remainder of the existing road before the cul-de-sac.
I built one, it's right behind town hall. When I did that subdivision up behind the town hall, on village property, we built the emergency access through what's called Veterans Drive, which is a private driveway, actually it's a driveway to the town hall. And if you go in the back of Veterans Drive, you will see that private thing still exists.
Yeah.
But there's no gate across it. Because the idea was that if the one access ever got blocked, they could always get emergency vehicles into that subdivision.
I think that's the reason that this gate is not locked, and I believe that the pillars were built to afford access by even the largest of fire trucks. That
I was up there, I saw it. It's not it wouldn't stop me going through with my little Toyota.
So
I can get in there with a pocket knife and a two-wheel drive car.
I feel like we've spent way too much time on this,
Yeah.
with all due respect to everybody.
Yeah.
The only two things I was asking was, I'm not keen on having site plans be violated and persist in that way in perpetuity, which
Right.
they will.
Right.
So if we can't enforce it, I don't care. I just wanted to send a letter to the village board to let them know that one of our site plans had been violated. And could they please contact the town and address this issue?
Shouldn't
Secondly,
our avenue be through Kurt?
fine.
And do we have to do a letter? I mean, he's been,
Yes,
Or
well,
whatever.
also-
I mean, or let's just, fine, then let's just say, let's have him contact the village board, send a memo, copy us, and go on. It shouldn't require all this. The only other thing that I'm unhappy about is I don't like the idea that a set of people in one neighborhood, without sitting down and talking to the people in another neighborhood, can go ahead and do something that could potentially, and from anecdotally, seems to have affected some of the people who were using that road and now no longer can.
right.
And I think that the town was out of bounds in choosing to go ahead and agree to do something for one group of neighbors without recognizing the other, perhaps in this case because they happen to be in a different municipality.
Well, my understanding of it was that the people, maybe Andy was the one, I don't know, but some people on Lent Drive felt like there was too much traffic coming across there.
Right.
From
I know
the
what I
vine
did.
to him, okay. So their solution was to get the town to do this. So they did it, and whether it's on both town and village, town only, village only, we don't really know now. But it seems like it does violate the terms of our site plan agreement with Woodland Pond.
Yeah, and actually I believe it violates the terms of the Lent Farms site plan, and I just think it's really bad process. I just think the way the
Oh, I
town
agree.
handled it is poor.
I agree.
And that's all, I just wanted to put it out there.
Okay.
And
I agree.
we can,
Kurt, what do you think what could you do? What would you do?
I'm repeating myself for.
Please do.
I'm concerned that I'm going to wear you guys out with this, but just as I've said last meeting, in between, and now this evening again, I don't have the authority to enforce. My office, my code enforcement officer does not have the authority to enforce anything outside of the village.
Right.
I'm not asking you to enforce anything. I'm just asking for the village to contact the town in an official capacity with a memo or a letter approved by the village board if necessary, or by Kurt's office or whomever, that says this may be in violation of a village site plan and possibly a town site plan, which your building inspector has already told you, by the way. And
My building inspector?
No.
There's,
the town's building inspector has informed the town board of that. And that's all. I just want a paper trail for this and move on. And then when warm weather comes and they put the asphalt down and so forth, and you know, in the meantime, I'm gonna go talk to people at Woodland Pond, and if they want to get up about it, that's fine.
Okay.
May I say that I feel similarly, and the last letter, which I haven't yet read from, that I have in regard to this, suggests that there's a binding agreement, that their lawyers have been contacted, that the Lent Farm people, Woodland Pond people, the town and the village have all agreed to the existence of and the modifications to the site plan that calls for a secondary access, not just an emergency road. So we have a paper trail that leads up to that point, but not up to the point of the execution of this agreement, just to the agreement itself. So I'll make available to you, if you care, to have this last item, which is dated February 11th, 2010.
I wasn't aware of it, but I think it actually makes the point that the road needs to be improved in order to take
Yes.
the traffic by the
Yes.
general public.
And it
Yes,
hasn't been. It has
No.
been approved.
No, the point is, no, improved meaning dedicated and accepted by the town. That's the process for.
Yeah,
for
the
public space.
steps that haven't happened are the final top coat and the dedication. Everything else has been done.
At your request in between the meetings, Mr. Chairman, I attempted to, you asked me to check the letter that the board had for factual. As I started to do that, I found I was changing the content, and I didn't think the board would appreciate that.
Right.
So I stopped and I wrote to the
Okay.
board and
Yeah.
trying to double check my own understanding and do the best I could with it.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, do you have any comments about this? Okay.
Well, thank you for all your.
Thanks.
I mean, I'll be happy to send any letters or policies or whatever we do, but mostly it'd be, you know, just want to make sure everyone hears on something. Everybody needs to. So I'm not
it's just an
sure
interesting
about
point
it.
of who has the liabilities here. If we don't enforce our code, who has the liability?
Actually, I don't believe we were failing to enforce our code, and the liability referred to, I assume, is the emergency access. And if it's not there, then I think it's extremely urgent. If emergency responders are prevented from accessing the development that way, I think it is an immediate concern.
Well, okay, so this is where it gets to a point where some investigation has to be made, and I don't know who should do that. In other words, if people at Woodland Pond feel like they no longer have the emergency, let alone secondary access, the emergency access that they need to have, they should do something about it. They should be calling the fire department, the ambulance service, and say, you know, is this okay with you? Can you get here still? And then if that's okay, and it's just a matter of inconvenience that this gate is there where they used to be able to travel unrestricted, and they want to do something about it, then I think that they could do something about it.
I mean, for those, for the board and for those watching this meeting, I think it's important to mention that My understanding, I think there was consideration by the town board of emergency access, and there was also an acknowledgement that the road was not improved yet. I'm not sure
Right.
what took so long
Yeah,
from the approval of this project until now, but it did not help this situation
Right.
at all.
right.
And my opinion is that that residents of that development, I think, had legitimate expectations to be able to use it.
Yes,
I don't believe that the same applies to commercial traffic. Whether they're destined or not, whether they think they're taking a shortcut to North Putt or whether they're going directly to Wooden Pond,
yeah,
I don't believe it. I believe that it's for the residents so that whether or not it's a time savings, they feel more comfortable,
Okay.
especially for those who've lived in the village of New Paltz or the town of New Paltz and reside there.
okay. So, anybody on the board want to do anything else about this? Or should we just leave it up to Michael to contact the Bill and Pond people?
Happy to do that.
Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is about the budget. I'd like to get the minutes out of the way first for the January 22nd minutes. There was some confusion on my part. I sent Kelly some revisions to her draft, one of which after I spoke with Kurt earlier this evening, I realized I was mistaken. But other than that, I don't know if anybody did she send it around the
Yeah,
correct
later.
day?
Well,
Okay.
she didn't send her changes. I didn't see it.
No,
I
did she
think
send mine?
acknowledged, I believe that she acknowledged and said that she would send revised minutes, so I think that.
But I didn't get it.
Your subsequent, oh, okay.
If
Your
the-
subsequent
Did you
message,
get
I
it?
think, was
No.
received.
Okay.
No, I
If the
only
board
have
will
hers.
allow me 1 second, I'll just double check and see if she sent them to me.
No, well, it's all right. Oh, okay, sure, go ahead. In any event, what I can do is mention what she has what my changes are. Maybe we should table this until she gets back.
Yeah, what would you do?
That was good.
She did email every member of the board at 6:39 this evening.
Okay,
So I'll put it on as a tabled matter until.
okay, that's good, thank you. Okay, budget. So there was some confusion about these forms, which I was trying to get PDF sent to all of you by the end of last week. And Nancy sent out an Excel spreadsheet, which some of us had problems reading.
Outside of the desktops in Village Hall, I could not open it on my personal laptop. And I
Right.
think,
No,
Mine
and
was
I-
in trouble.
And I couldn't either.
is there, I'm not sure what the problem was, but I thought it was something technical.
I don't know.
I did have a message from saying on my computer if I did.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
No, I didn't have any trouble opening it. What else
This
is
is a budget.
No,
So,
okay.
the items over which we have some discretion here, well, let me just read for the record what we've got here. There's a secretary, which I don't see how many hours it says we should have a secretary.
Well, it doesn't say how many hours, but it
It just says it,
gives a rate of $17
yes.
an hour
So that doesn't answer,
and a total
Question, yeah.
of $11.70, which works out to be about 69 hours a year.
right. And I'm not sure what that covers. I know Kelly is an extra expense, right? That's an extra hourly expense, and is that part of that line?
That is.
That is
yeah,
the
Is
That's only
her
Kelly?
salary,
Only Kelly.
yeah.
Okay,
Her hourly wage.
And she averages between 3 and 4 hours a
Okay.
meeting.
and is there a separate charge for your services, for a portion of your services?
No, when I'm here, I believe that when I'm here, it's just part of my regular duties as the clerk.
Okay,
Yeah, the clerk is, and the deputy clerk are salaried, they're not the deputy, the clerk is salaried. So.
right, but we aren't charged back for any of that?
By law, the clerk is the clerk of all the statutory boards in the village. So if Kelly or Valerie, if the historical commission can't make it, it's Katie or Ella who have to make sure that. it's
Right.
covered. That's
Okay.
covered in their salary, in their own lines.
Well, the math doesn't add up on that. If she's billing 3.5 hours per meeting,
No, per month.
No, per meeting.
Per
She
meeting?
averages about 3 hours between the time that she's physically here at the building and that she puts into the minutes.
Travel?
Right.
No, not travel. Just the
okay.
time she's physically
Minutes.
in the building, and the minutes that she produces averages about 3 hours.
Per meeting, okay.
Right. So-
Usually an hour for the meeting and 2 hours for the minute
Okay.
production.
It's approximately 23 meetings.
So if it's 24 meetings, that's 84 hours.
The 23 meetings.
23 meetings. Okay. So if we say 3.5.
Okay.
17 an hour. Anyway, that works out to be $1,369 instead of $1,770.
1170.
Thank you. So that would need to be raised to $1,369.
Except that we don't have that many meetings a year.
So how many do we have?
Well, the total, the maximum would normally be 24,
Yeah.
but we often
We didn't have any in December.
Yeah.
So we
some-
want to budget for less? That,
Well-
I don't mind, I'm just saying.
No, what I'm saying is this is close enough for me.
Okay.
I mean, I think we have some idea that it's based upon the real estate sector of the economy too. Meetings could become very long and this
Yeah.
could be, so it's difficult to pin down.
Yeah.
Well, that's 20 meetings a year. That's what it amounts to at her rate in hours.
Okay.
So, okay, well, if that works, that's fine.
And then
Will
there's
she be receiving an increase for the year?
an increase of what?
An increase to her salary?
You know, this is the first I've seen anything about her salary. I don't know anything about it. I don't know who decides how much it should be or.
I'll defer to you. I don't know the.
We don't negotiate her salary. do we?
That's really up to the village board to
Yes,
decide
got
if they're
nothing.
gonna-
Okay.
if they're gonna give raises, it's
Good
not
to
up to the board. Thanks, though.
My best calculation at the present moment shows that we need $20 more.
Let's see what I got on.
Okay, so go ahead, Michael. You could say something.
No, sir.
Okay. So that's that. Then there's contractual. Not sure I understand this format very well. Where's this? I'm in the Ray Curran line, looks like. Okay, so there's a charge for the copier, for conferences, training, travel is 0. Phone is 0. Printing 400, subscription 250. And I saw something for $600 for the copier service contract.
The last page.
Yeah, this page.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Videographer, legal notices. Why legal notices?
Do we
Because
build
it's stuff that
anything?
goes in the newspaper, right?
Yeah, anything public notices, the planning board.
But aren't they
Public
driven
hearing.
by escrow? I mean, isn't that paid for by the applicant?
Most of them would be.
Aren't they charged to the applicant when they get?
If the applicant does have an escrow, yes, we do charge the applicant. It's part of the funds. But there are occasions when something comes before a planning board that doesn't have an escrow, as far as I know. And I
Not
could
that,
be
not that it
wrong.
would be advertised.
Well, I could see that there may be some thing, but it would be very rare. It
Or
certainly
an
wouldn't
extra
rise
meeting
to
or-
600.
An emergency meeting would be
Okay. How much is one notice? It's cheap. It's like right, $15, $25, something like that.
in
Legal
one
notices?
newspaper it's $15, and the which is the New Paltz Times, it's $15 ish. I think in the village newspaper of choice, which is the Daily Freeman, I think it's in the $35 range.
Yeah.
So $50 altogether.
Well, it only has to be in one.
Only one.
There's a deadline issue. One of them you can do until like 3 days before or something. I don't know what it is, but so anyhow, this seems like a lot to me for something that would be mostly paid for by escrow. But that's that.
I agree. I think it's rare, and if we'd like to recommend that it's decreased, we should do so.
Right.
Because there are very few and far between that we would have occasion to publish our own notice.
Right. Okay. And I don't know what to say about $600 for a copier service contract. What portion of that is the? What portion is that of the total for the village?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head. But it is split out over several lines. And we have 2 copiers of it.
That just seems like a lot to me.
I might be able to.
No, well, that's all right. I mean, that's just the question that I have of this. It seemed like a lot. Training is fine, and
Again, because I should mention that because a few years ago, of course, the New York State adopted requirements regarding training that were not in place before. That we should look carefully at that because planning board members need approximately 4 hours of training, which I'm willing to do on a weekend and so forth. I'd like to have something visual to go with it. Otherwise, I think that could be akin to waterboarding to have to just look at me present something for 4 hours. So.
we don't have to look.
Right, yeah.
We can
Distract
avert our
yourself with electronic devices
Yeah.
and stuff.
Avert your eyes.
Yeah. But in any case, so that if that were the board's pleasure, then
The county offers 2 trainings a year, usually at UC, that are, I think, 2 hours each.
that would do it.
So that will do it. But we're happy to have any other things that you think we might need that they don't cover. Because their agendas aren't necessarily burning issues for us, but it's what they're pushing at the time. And there are online things available from the state and State Department of State. I
Yes.
think it is, yeah.
Yes, and
Do
actually,
we
and my
need
job,
anything budgeted for that whatsoever? Do
What's
we have
that?
Do we need any money budgeted for travel and training whatsoever?
You know, there's, yes, we haven't taken advantage of it, but the New York Planning Federation has an annual thing. I don't know how much that costs. It was pretty pricey. I think.
I looked it up very recently. I think it's actually it's coming up in April. So
Right.
this would be for April of 2014 as far as our budget goes. But that's one I've attended a lot. I highly recommend it.
I know. Everybody keeps telling me I should do it at least once. And
Actually, I mean,
Is it still only classic?
this one is in Saratoga Springs. Yeah.
Well, it's a lot more than $100, which is.
yes,
what
it
we
is a
have
lot.
per person.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that would come down to budgeting and what the village feels it can make
Right.
available. But yes, I mean, I highly recommend that for not only chairs of board, but also for members.
Right. Okay. So we should look into what that would cost and whether there's some sort of a family discount for.
Right, actually, there is a discount on the rooms. Of course, as you might imagine, the costs are significant. It might be 2 nights, it might be 2.5 days, something
Yeah.
in that order.
It's a long weekend. as I
Significant
recall.
when you add in the hotel.
That's
costs.
what I remember. I felt badly spending so much money doing it, although everybody has really pushed me to do it. Thought it would be really worthwhile.
I think it's enjoyable and informative.
Yeah. And other people have said that for networking purposes, it's probably that may be even the best part of it. But whatever, to speak with other planning board chairs and so on. But
I could at least confirm the cost, all told.
yeah, okay,
I'm not with this fellow, was it?
okay. So printing, I don't know why we have $400 for printing, other than for is that copying?
It's papering, pretty much.
Sorry.
It's pretty much the cost. It's an estimate of our portion of the cost of things like paper for the copier, for all the stuff that we get.
Right.
The agendas.
So the use of the copier is free. The service contract we pay $600 for, and printing $400 is for what?
Toner and paper.
Okay. Okay.
What do we have subscriptions to?
Well, that's the New York Planning Federation membership. I
Oh,
believe
okay.
comes out of that.
Yes, actually, you know what? Let's see. That was I had signed off for that for the current year. So I'm not sure whether with the reorganization of the department, the intent was to add that to my budget. I put it in my budget because I had signed off on it this
I
year.
believe it's a village-wide resource that
It is.
the ZBA, Planning Board, and I think Village Board members are members of the.
Yes,
consideration.
that and NICOM, the
Right.
New York Conference of Mayors. So those two organizations, yes, are certainly more than the planner and the planning board.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what the subscription is for?
That's the right amount, and I believe that
Okay.
I believe that's what that is. In other words, we don't get anything else in the office.
But did you just say that's already in your budget?
It
You
is.
shouldn't put it in twice, because it's just a waste of money.
No, actually, well, I'll amend my departmental budget, and again, I don't know, it came to me for signature this year along with an invoice, but I'm not sure what happened in past years. So, okay, I'll find out and I'll amend my departmental budget. I don't think it should be in the, okay, so let's leave it out of the planning board's budget and only do my departmental budget.
Okay. Yeah, so did everybody get this copy of the accounts payable disbursement report from Nancy? Or am I the only recipient? Okay.
I don't remember seeing that.
So there are some items on here. The two things that I need to talk about and make sure that we get the services that we need are legal and secretarial. And the legal thing is the most pressing to me right now, although secretarial is a big thing too. And I'm happy Katie's here. We can talk to her about that some. But on this sheet, this accounts payable disbursement report, it shows payments to the videographer totaling $29.70 for the year. Ariel Law Firm for $5,000, which I don't know why we're. Do you know what that's for?
No, off the top of my head, no.
That shouldn't be charged to us. I'm sorry?
It might be 127 Main, dealing with that special use permit and the issues that surround it. But that would have been a unique,
That
not a
involves the
standard.
zoning board of appeals though, not the planning board.
And the other thing that he spent money on was the hookah bar. But that was the year before, I believe.
Yeah, plus the hookah bar's been closed for a year.
For-
It's not been an
for,
issue since I've been on the board.
Perhaps
Right.
the cafe project?
The which?
The cafe project?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I'm not sure why we should be charged for that at all, the $5,000.
Some of this is, would be standard accounting. From what I understand, Gatsby 34, it's just a matter of what line item you put things under, which is just at Nancy's discretion. We're paying it regardless of whether it's in this line or that.
Right, but I mean, there must be some reason why it's in planning and why I should care about it. In other words, if my budget says $16,769 and some of that is for stuff that I didn't authorize, we didn't pay, that I know of, it shouldn't be on my budget. It shouldn't be there, I think.
I think that's true. If this budget was circulated to you, Mr. Chairman, as well as your board, I think, and we don't know of any involvement by village council. The planning board has counsel, so I think you're right. You shouldn't leave entries that you can't, that we haven't seen. At least in the period of time I've been here, we haven't had involvement from village council with the planning board.
Okay, and there's Ulster Publishing, and okay, so these are things that perhaps should be charged to escrow accounts. I don't really know. Oh, here's a charge for New York Planning Federation for $175. Now there's no date on this on these things, which is too bad.
No kidding.
No, I wouldn't kid you. I don't kid.
Wow.
I'm serious.
I've looked
Okay.
at 1 million budgets in my life.
And for the Report Myers, which is our planning board attorney, it says the total charges of $74.97. This has the old retainer amounts. So I'm not sure what this represents, but it doesn't represent anything that makes sense to us for now. But the problem that I have, and I think the planning board has, is the limited use of our attorney due to the budget that we have, which is now $2,000 a year. It had been 10, plus whatever he does for escrow, which is outside of that. And we had him on a retainer for $10,000 a year, which meant that he was at every meeting and was available to us for any work we needed, such as parking guidelines or code changes for other things, or things outside of applications. So one thing that is different this year than it was last year is that George is now charging any work he does at a meeting to the applicant, to their escrow account, as opposed to us, which is right. That's the way it should be. So his the amount of time that he spends at meetings for general planning board stuff is less than it was before. But I feel a real lack of his presence, or the firm's presence at our meetings, and his availability to us. And I would like to propose that we increase the retainer. It was 10 and now it's 2, and I would like to propose that it come in at 6, which is somewhere in the middle. If
How
not
much of
there.
that the past year, I missed that. How much of that $2,000 has been spent to date?
I don't have that information.
$1,167.
Where do you see that?
It's not on anything you have. It's something I got from Nancy, and I just did the math while we were talking.
What's 1167?
The
Fiscal year to date.
from June 1st, 2012 through a bill that was issued, an invoice that was issued on 1/14/2013. The fees that are not for escrow accounts from the attorney's firm are $1,167.
Actually, seems pretty decently on target, unless.
Right, no, that is on target. There are a couple of problems with it.
Good.
There are a couple of problems with it. One is that there is a substantial amount of unpaid invoices. That I sent a copy of this afternoon to Nancy and Kurt, and I think the rest of the planning board, which was a ledger report that I just got from them showing items that have been unpaid, for some of which from the previous escrow, from the previous retainer. Apparently, at least I got that verbally. And I know that Katie has been on the phone and in email several times with people from the office, from the Report Myers office. And I was under the impression that everything was current, but it's apparently not. So the numbers that we have may not be correct. And the numbers that we have spent is much less than we should have spent, because I have done without their presence at meetings when I would have rather had them here. And I've done without calling them and having him do work because of the limited amount of budget that we had, trying to be a good citizen and so on. And also there are things that, for example, the work that Ariel did for, I guess it was the definitions part of the code changes, was something that I have become very upset about because of how long it's taken to happen. It seems like it's more than a year late, still not finished. It has taken probably 100 hours or more of planning board ZBA unpaid time to vet and correct his work, which seemed like a poor draft at best. And there's really no excuse for that. This should have been done a long time ago, should have been done better. And I think someone like George and his firm would have done a much better job at it. So I'm calling for more involvement by them than we had last year. And
So there's one other element too that's changed obviously
Yes.
last year. That was we have a director. I'm not even gonna say the whole title.
you have to say it. No, come on, I had to say it.
The planning, building, and environmental services.
Yes, thank you. It's okay.
So I guess because that was one of the parts of one of the bits of thinking last year. Obviously now we have actual real life experience instead of just projections. So I guess the obvious question, one of the obvious questions is, obviously Kurt is not a lawyer, but what types? I'm curious. What types of advice or work does and it doesn't have the personalities. Any planning board require an attorney that what's separate? Where's the overlap? What is what is Kurt doing now that George used to? Because obviously that's some of it. Some questions are going to Kurt that used to go to George. Is it become clear that there's silos of information that we need to rely on one person with this background for this and a person with this background over here, or is it more muddy than that? Is that clear?
Well, I don't know about mud, but it is. I don't think it's that clear. I think that there are times when I feel that I need legal advice or legal opinions about how to proceed with something that Kurt may have an opinion of, he may have the right answer to. But I feel that to fulfill my obligations and what I think the planning board should be doing, I would want an attorney to give us that advice. I'd like for code things, Kurt probably can do a fine job coming up with suggested code, but I would want George to at least review it, if not write it. I think that's my comfort level.
You mean code originating from the planning board and going to the village board, or when you all review something we send to you? Like when we send you a zoning change and ask for your input, which direction are you looking at?
Well, either one. For example, the parking thing. We've been talking about changing the parking code to be something that is more planning board discretionary rather than just 3 spaces per this. That's taken a bit of time. We finally have what we think is good language. George added a preamble to put in front of that section of that chapter, and I think he made a couple of other minor suggestions, and that's coming to village board when? Thursday?
It would be. I would submit it this Thursday, depending on the village board's agenda. They would place it on their next available agenda.
Okay. Well, I would certainly hope that it be dealt with soon, because we come up with this every meeting where we have a code that is clumsy and outdated and in some cases contradictory to itself. That makes our job very difficult, and I'm hoping that we can get this change made very soon. But anyhow, so there are things like that require legal access to legal resources, and that I forgot what it is now, something like $6,000 a year would be something like 2.5 hours a month. I think that's right. I could be wrong, but something like 2.5 or 3 hours a month. Right now, it's I think 50 minutes a month that we get for the $2,000. Is that right?
Well,
Something like that.
according to their ledger, they put in more than that, but they charge us, since it's on a retainer, they charge us a certain amount every month. But according to the ledger you sent, the actual number of hours that they're recording for that amount is much more than 50 minutes. It's always more than an hour and sometimes more than 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, what Jason told us last year was that if we have more expenses than this, then we would, he would find it in another line or something. I forgot the exact terms you used, but something like that. And I'm suspicious that this does not contain everything that was built because of this report that we got today that shows lots of things have been unpaid, some
Does it
back.
break it up by escrow versus the?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just looking at the, and that, actually, that's where I got the 1167 from, but that, all that is, as I said, is their monthly retainer fee bill from June through December, so.
I mean, real estate is the income source for the village. We don't make that much money on parking tickets. We don't make, water and sewer pays for itself. Really, the income source of this town is the taxes, and taxes are on real estate. So what this board does in terms of the effect on real estate is key to the income survival of the town. And to weaken the team in any way is not a good business move. This team should be stronger, not weaker. And I think, the fact that, the 5 of us being lay people do the best we can, but to not be supplemented by at least 2 good professionals. Just because we have 1 doesn't mean it's better than having 2. I think what really deserves having 2 good, solid professionals on the board. Now, whether George's firm needs that many hours, I think we have to take a look and see based on how many applicants, but we're guessing how many applicants come in a year. Last year was a slow year. Next year, hopefully, will be better, but we know we've got a couple of big projects coming on here soon.
Well, that would
We've got a
be for
huge
escrow.
project coming on with the NIF annexation, huge. And that's gonna be a big income generation source for this village once it comes on board, as well as a
But
cost
that's
factor.
not what we're talking, that's separate, that would be covered.
But those
that
will be covered
escrow.
by escrow.
But that is what we're
Well,
talking
there
about. We're
also
talking
are-
about,
There also are administrative fees, right, Rich? So in other words, that's revenue in addition to, the escrow is not revenue, and by law, it can't be revenue.
no,
But you're right, that there are administrative fees.
no, I'm saying the revenue comes from the fact that the real estate in this town is of what's of value.
Right.
And when we don't give it its due, and we don't treat it like it has value. The worst thing a town can do is hire a cheap assessor. It's absolutely the worst thing they can do. Because if they screw up their assessment and they undervalue, they're not gonna get the taxes that they should be getting. They should have a really good assessment. We really need good planning. We really need to use what little bit of lands we have to the optimum. It's what creates the income. And when all of a sudden we weaken the team by leaving it up to 5 lay people and 1 non-lawyer, not that I'm the greatest fan of lawyers, but it's an addition to the team. If he was the only person on the team, I'd be extremely worried.
and you know what, Rich, I also care about the expedient way that we can dispatch an application, that we do things in the most efficient way for the applicant, for us, for the village staff, and we got it done right the first time, and we don't subject ourselves to Article 78s, where things are more efficient. That it's a not necessarily pleasant experience for an applicant, but it's certainly not onerous, and not that we missed this and we're gonna have to come back 3 more times.
Well, if our applicants think it's important enough to bring their attorney, why don't we have ours?
Well, again, Rich, let's pause for a second, because we're not, this conversation about the 2,000, 6,000, 10,000 is absolutely zero to do with any application.
Right.
That's all, you could have George for 200 hours a month, and the applicant is paying that bill.
Right, but it's
So we're not
also
talking- so we're
it's
not
also
talking
his
about-
presence at it's his presence at meetings.
Which also, as you said, has changed, and not all of it, I imagine, but most of it is escrow. So I just want to make sure that we're not.
No, what
we're
I'm
not
saying is
lumping
that
everything together.
if there
So
is
this is planning board non-applicant work
Right.
that is covered by this, whether it's 2,000 or 6,000 or 10. So I'm just honestly trying to understand how much of that is that.
I would argue
No,
for
so-
an increase, are you done? I'm sorry.
No, I think I have a tendency to make my point 3 times before I'm done, but
Sorry.
how many,
Go ahead.
how many was that?
There's only
It's only 2,
two.
so I still got 1 more. I'm waiting for the third.
Go ahead.
to drop. To piggyback on something that Maurice said, I would like to have the services of a planning board attorney, because the fact that it has been relatively slow and the fact that our code does need some changes that would make our jobs better and I think result in better planning for the community. I would like to be able to rely on our planning board attorney to help us draft proposals for legislation that we could then pass on to you. And so that would be my argument for having an increase in attorney's fees.
Yeah, that's more precisely than Rich's, so I'd like to hear it the third time. Because that's the kind of work that we would need that money for. And I think we had a brief conversation last year about that was something that the planning board wanted to do but had not done in several years. So having not started that seemed maybe unwise to budget for something that wasn't the work. But now things are starting to move a little bit, so that might.
Jason, I just want to, with all due respect, when I bumped into you this afternoon and I mentioned that we were doing on the agenda we were doing our budget, you said make it your wish list.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now you're asking us to say over and over again why, and you're sort of playing devil's advocate, but really this is, with all due respect, this is really our conversation about what we'd like to put on the budget, and then when you guys get it, you can tear it up if you want.
Oh, I'll shut up. I'm because I'm going to continue this conversation later. I want to have a better understanding of why this is good than I currently do. That's
okay,
all. And I'll leave you to it.
But we'll speak our points. It'll be in our minutes. And
To get good work out of this board, we need a strong team. We really do need Kurt, we really do need the attorney, and we need the five of us.
See, the third time is always the best one. That's why we get
I'm just trying to be succinct.
And there's also, Kurt is, as I told you, Jason, Kurt is a really good thing for the village. He has been very helpful.
yes.
One problem I have is access to him, that he's not available to me when I need him. For example, I know it's all about me, but but aside from that, he's been very helpful. He's tremendously helpful, and I'm looking forward to many more years, especially when we get into something like a rewrite of our comprehensive plans and do some actual planning as opposed to shuffling around applications. But I feel, from my perspective, that I need access to an attorney when problems come up that may not be related to an application. There have been several things like that. There are some things that have to do with an application, but it's not escrow because the application's over and we're talking about some sort of a litigation thing or something like that. Not that he's going to do the litigation, but we want to prevent it. We want to figure out the best way to proceed. So anyhow, okay, we'll come up with.
Could I ask a
the
question?
number. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman,
Mr.
how much per hour are we paying this attorney? What are we budgeting for? If we're budgeting $2,000 a year, what are we paying for?
I think it's something like $200, $250 an hour. I don't remember the number.
Well, if it's $200 an hour, then it's 10 hours a year.
That's not how they're billing us, though. At the moment, they're billing us.
Oh no, they do bill by the hour.
I thought they built us by the meeting.
Well, the $166.67 a month is, my understanding, is based on a contractual agreement.
That's the retainer.
Yeah.
That's a retainer, and that's all we have at the moment.
That's right. Well,
So,
What Michael's saying is, of course, that he found through this report is that more work is being done. They're living within the confines of what was budgeted,
right, but
they're reporting that more work is being done in spite of the budget.
so for
my understanding, Michael and Kurt, is that they're billing the whatever the amount is per month, the $2,000 a year, and then they're billing escrow amounts. And then if there's something that they do or I ask them to do that is not escrow, that's outside, that's over the retainer, they bill it. And if I ask them to do it, I approve it. And this is one of the things that gets charged to another line, wherever that is, whatever the mysterious line is. And it should appear on here, but according to this sheet that I have, the regular department payment report, the only thing that's on here is retainers, and there's only 3, 7,
No, that's,
there are 9 of these, yes?
well,
We
the
got
thing,
different sheets
the
here.
thing that you sent to us today, Maurice,
Yes.
which is from the attorney and is a list of,
I was not able to read that.
okay, well, I'm reading it.
Okay.
So, and it's got a lot of numbers, some of which go back,
Oh, you're
So-
talking about the PDF that came from Report Myers?
yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yes.
So it has lots of items that are escrow accounts, and
Yes.
then it has some zoning board, and then it has a fairly lengthy Village of New Paltz
Yes.
planning board attorney. But some of the numbers go back to 2010, 2011. So ignoring those and ignoring the first half of 2012, because that was for the previous year's budget, you're left with the items on page 3 of that report at the top.
The
which are-
2010 is the inception of their agreement with us. That's
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they started.
No, I understand.
And so that just shows everything that they billed us. And the big chunk of that, going back 2010, is retainers.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's all of it, actually.
Anyway, just to answer,
Yes.
or just to inform Tom of what he asked, that on page 3 of this list, the fee they charge per month, which is $166.67 for 1, 2, 3, 7, 7 months. But when they indicate the number of hours they worked during those, it adds up to 11 hours.
That's non-escrow?
Those are non-escrow.
What dates are you looking at?
I'm looking at page 3, so it's from 7/18/2012 through 1/14/2013.
So that's the last page?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So they billed, they used to bill separately from who's doing the work. Like associate lawyers were, you know,
They might. but
George makes the
they
most,
might,
we got a
but
$75 an hour lawyer down here.
It
so
doesn't say
It's
that.
not like a,
These aren't bills. This is
Oh, it's just the hours.
this is a ledger of that indicates.
Okay,
the
Michael,
date of the
I'm
invoice.
looking at page 3. What are you saying now?
At the top
Yes?
where it says Village of New Paltz.
Yes.
Those are non-escrow numbers, and all I'm saying is that they're billing us for more than whatever their hourly.
Maybe I see that.
They're working for more hours.
They're billing us less.
They're billing us less per hour because they're working more under the contractual.
The top section of there are like 12 or 13 lines. Those are all escrow monies, including payments to escrow. Right, that's what the payment amount is on the right side.
On the right
833,
side, yes.
833, 166, and so on, and the charges are on the left. So the charges are for 7 months,
Okay.
starting in July. And that may be the fiscal year.
Yeah, that would be the first one for the this current fiscal year.
Yeah. Okay. And then after that is escrow, and then there's something that says RE zoning.
Yeah, I'm only talking about the 10 lines or so that are at the very top
Okay.
of page 3. Everything else is escrow before and after it.
And my question has to do with
So,
what the budget is a part of planning. A budget is a plan. It's a quantification of what you're hoping to do for the year. So what can we reasonably expect? What can we plan for in advance for legal consultation outside of escrow with a $2,000 a year budget? What can we reasonably plan for? And if the firm is expecting to get, or they're typically charging
It looks like it's 195.
166.67, then, you know, we could.
That's 50 minutes.
That's about 50 minutes
A month.
that we can get. So we can get 10 50-minute shots of,
12.
we could plan, 12 50-minute segments of time from an attorney outside of
Right.
escrowed monies.
Right.
So that's what we can think of.
Yeah, and you know what I've been saying is that's not enough.
I understand that, but I want to quantify, because we're saying it's not enough by itself, I don't believe is enough.
Right. Well, that's why what I said was if we go to $6,000, that's 30 hours. That's 2.5 hours per month.
That's meaningful to me.
That means that he would, I believe, he will come to every meeting, and be available to us to answer questions. Period. That's what I think he would do for $6,000 a year, and that's what I want to have. I want to get back to the point where I can request information from him, opinions, draft letters, resolutions, whatever it is, for things outside of escrow. Have him be at every meeting, so that when we have discussions that are not escrow items, like the last meeting, he can be here to do it. So anyhow, that's that.
Don't we have two major changes coming up in the next year, and that's the annexed properties and the B3 zone?
Yeah, sure.
And of course, those.
And we're going with $2,000 worth of legal fees.
Well,
That's dependent, that also largely be done by the village attorney, rather than the planning board attorney. And the question is, do we?
So it's been done without us.
Well, no, not without the planning board, but do we need to pay 2 lawyers to review the same?
no, but we need to pay a lawyer who I think would do a good job for us, and I think George would do a better job than the village attorney. That's that's it.
So
Yeah.
we can request then,
Yeah.
we can request support for the planning board attorney. Whatever the village board chooses to do with that is another matter, but we should request what we believe we need as we plan for the activities of the planning board for the rest of,
Yeah.
well, for the next fiscal year.
Okay, and since we don't have escrow for this meeting, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I also wanted to speak about secretarial support for the planning board. We've gone through several iterations of how this works. When I first came here, we had a woman who was, I forgot how many hours a week she was working, Allison. Jason, did you remember? Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
May I interject for just a
Oh,
moment?
please.
I wanted to let you know, in my wish list of budget, I've actually asked for the deputy clerk to be allowed to be here full time. I don't know what the village board will respond to that, but among the reasons I list for why I would like the deputy clerk to be available full time is that she can play a more day-to-day role in things like the planning and zoning board and
Right.
preparation of papers.
Right. I mean, as of now, Katie, I don't have enough of you.
I
I
understand.
just don't. It's been,
Neither do a lot of people.
I know. I mean, we went through, I was about to give just a little bit of background for everybody. My sense of history begins with Allison being here. I think she worked something like half-time or 60% time. I don't remember now. It wasn't
She was a
full-time.
couple, she was CBA.
CBA, planning board, period.
Mhm.
That was it. And I think it was 30 hours a week or 25, I don't remember. But it was not full-time, and that's, I believe, why she quit. She was replaced by another woman who was also, I think she was half-time at that point. And she also did planning board and ZBA, and perhaps didn't do as good a job as Allison. Allison had been doing it for a long time. Then we got Amanda, who took the place of the planning board ZBA attorney, village clerk, and the deputy village clerk. And this woman worked like crazy. I think perhaps more than you even, believe it or not.
I believe it.
She didn't have kids, but she was working. And she got a lot done for us. Some things got slipped, but not so bad. The way things are now, things are really a problem for me. And I won't say us, but I feel it. I know that I looked at the village web page earlier today, and it looks like there are no planning board minutes there more recent than 6 or 7 months ago. And I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. At one point, I developed my own website for the village planning board, which the then village board did not want to use or did not want to link to from the main village webpage, which meant that nobody knew it was there. So I stopped using it. Yes, sir.
I knew it was there.
I came over, I showed it to you all every day. Of course I knew it was there. But the fact is that we need someone to be on this stuff for us. I need stuff. I've been speaking to Kurt about this also, and he was mentioning that maybe we can do something together. I don't care how it gets done, but it's something that I'm going to have to budget something for. And if we share someone or however that works, that's fine.
So what are you proposing? What do you think is a dollar amount that would work?
You know, I don't know how much people get paid now. It looks like Kelly gets $17 an hour, which I don't know if that's a
Well, we have to go with the number we have. We don't decide. What we should decide on is the number of hours that you need, and then depending on what they choose to pay that person, they'll figure out the number.
Right. So, you know, we used to have something like 15 or 20 hours a week of time, which, and then, and incidentally, Kelly has been doing the meetings and the minutes for, I don't know how long, 7 months, 8 months, maybe 10. And I wouldn't want that changed for anything. She's great. She does great work. She's dependable. She's reliable. She's fast. And so I hope that can continue. And because we've had other times when people took minutes that weren't necessarily that good or that prompt. But anyhow, so I'd like that to stay. And I don't know how many hours we need beyond that, but I need to know when something comes in for us that we're notified of it. We get copies right away, that the minutes get put on the website, that all these things that don't seem to be happening now. I've been trying to get DVDs for meetings that I don't have for, I don't know, when was it that we corresponded about that, Katie? I gave you a list of 8 meetings that I didn't have DVDs for, and you said, yes, the planning board chair and the ZBA should have copies of every meeting. And I said, yeah, that's great, but I need these to fill out my set so I can.
And that's my fault.
Yeah, I understand
I will
that,
go back and look for that.
I'm not talking about fault because I know how overburdened you are. But what I'm saying is if I had someone here that was at least a part of mine, that I could say, do this, and it gets done. I don't remember when I sent you the thing about the budget thing to get a PDF from someone, you know, but things like that just don't happen. They don't happen. I need things to happen. I need someone to be here when I'm not, because I can't be. I have this job thing.
So Maurice, do you think like 10 hours a week additional?
Well,
that would...
I think somewhere between 10 and 15, you know, a couple of hours a day, but...
Okay.
Not additional, we're talking about you need 15 hours a week.
Well...
In addition to Kelly.
In addition to the 3
in addition to the meeting minutes.
Okay. So...
You know, a couple of hours a day is probably all we would need, and the beauty of being able to share the resource with Kurt's domain, Empire, just to be, is that, you know, it doesn't have to. We don't have to. She doesn't have to sit here for 2 or 3. The person does not have to sit here for 2 or 3 hours with nothing to do if there's nothing going on. Because I think with being able to share a resource, we'd be more likely to be able to get more use out of.
And in fact, I'll say right off the bat, someone who would do this type of work for the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals would be performing a service for me and my department as
Right.
very constituted. So they're one and the same, they're part and parcel.
Yeah. So anyhow, perhaps we can talk about this
All right, well then,
and at the rest of the week and try to figure out some number of hours that would make sense. Carl's use has always been much less than ours. The ZBA hasn't needed as much as we do, but
might be able to share this with your department. And so if you want somebody, I split the difference, say 12 hours a week.
yeah, something like that.
So times 52 weeks is 624 hours. And then if you add that to the whatever the
Share
other
somebody from the
was.
town.
I'm sorry.
Maybe we can share somebody from the town.
So-
Again, I will throw into the hat that I really would like to see the deputy clerk, who is part-time, take on a full-time role, and that being one of the things that she,
We don't decide that though.
All right.
You know,
well,
I'll tell you,
but
Katie, I think that's great, or it sounds great, but if her time is pulled by someone more important than me, who may be sitting in this room at the other side of the table, or some other emergency things that come up, I'm screwed. And I want things to get done when they have to get done. And, you know, I'm happy to talk about it, even to try it. But we haven't made progress in this area. We've been losing ground instead of getting better.
I know.
And I need to change the flow so that things do improve and we get better results from what we need. So, but I'm happy to try it. You've been teasing me with Alberta for months. I haven't seen anything yet.
Because it is an overwhelming amount of tasks, as I've been informed by Kurt. Our office has a lot of additional expectations that other town and village clerks might not necessarily have upon them.
Oh, I know. You should have seen it when poor Amanda was doing.
I don't doubt it.
I don't know how the hell she lasted as long as she did, but she was great for a good period of time until she started going to college on top of everything. But, nerve. Okay, so
can
yes,
I
Mr. Zerler.
propose that we summarize the changes to the budget and
Well, I have several questions about it. One is I don't know what the printing costs are. If that's the copier, why we should pay $600 for copier contracts? What portion of that is ours? If in fact any of that matters. In other words, if it's just bookkeeping that Nancy
pretty
says.
much just, I can tell you from having done 5 of these budgets in total, not just planning. Those are costs that just get distributed. There's service contracts,
Yeah. Okay.
and they just get, it's not
And,
really an item
and,
to
it,
be
and it
negotiated.
doesn't have to be in an equitable manner. It's just a matter that I got this. That's it. That's fine. So I don't care about.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
so I don't call that a discretionary part of my
It's
budget.
not.
I have to admit, when I looked at my departmental budget, I thought we were taking care of our copier. The amount looked like more than reasonable amount for a service contract and a copier. I wasn't aware until we started discussing it that this was tacked onto the planning board's budget.
Yeah. Well,
And I'll look at the zoning board's budget too.
he probably has another hit there too.
It'll be
Probably
similar.
there.
I mean,
Yeah.
I really thought we were.
So that's fine. Whatever. But so I don't really care about those things because to me that's just
right.
voodoo economics. Who said that?
George Bush first.
Herbert Walker. Okay. So.
I thought it was
I don't care about that. What I care about is getting our needs met legally and secretarial.
Right, so I was just gonna suggest we propose, I was just gonna run through this, what I've been writing down, see if everybody's in
Yes.
agreement.
Please.
So I'm gonna suggest that we ask for 694 hours of secretarial time. And so the dollar amount of that would be determined by whatever the hourly.
So that's in addition to Kelly, or that includes?
That includes 70 hours, which is already in here at 1,170. $100. So it's in addition to the 70 hours, the total is 694. That gives you 12 hours a week of additional secretarial or administrative assistance. In addition to the 3.
I think we should cut that to 2 hours a day.
Cut it to 2?
Yeah, 10 hours a week. That should.
Alright, so then
I mean,
it's-
because a lot of what we were paying for before was the
so then it's
minutes.
570.
And then each year, let's say there is an uptick in the real estate sector and development, then of course we'd look at it in the next budget. year and
Yeah.
say, But that's not bad to start probably.
All right, so then the
So that's
total is
520?
590.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the first page.
So that would be in a portion of Alberta, let's say, or
Somebody.
something, however that works out. I don't care where it comes from, as long as it's someone that I can count on.
You can work out the details.
Yeah.
So on the second page, there's no changes except Kurt's gonna look into taking the $250 off for the subscriptions out of the planning board line.
Yes,
If it's a
won't be,
duplicate.
it certainly won't be duplicated, yeah.
And then on the third page, we're asking for $6,000 for the attorney. Possibly reducing the legal notices by some amount. I don't know how much you want to reduce that by. And then the other item is just making sure that we still get the same coverage for the videographer. If their rate goes up, then our budget has to be adjusted.
I hear it's going down.
It won't be going up, I'll tell you that.
Okay, good, thanks. So those are the only items I see that have changed.
Okay. Okay. I am way done. So I will meet with Nancy to find out about these other things I've been missing and to see if we can get a resolution to the ledger sheet that I distributed tonight about why they haven't been paid or whether they have been paid, or I don't know. Anybody else have anything to add to this? Ms. Harshaw? Mr. Rocco?
Yet.
I have a
I will
question
read
about the, sorry.
No.
About the Church Street Cafe.
It's
You
on the
noticed-
agenda? Okay, I'm sorry.
I just wanted an update.
Yes.
It's gone to the county and we're
Yes.
just waiting to hear back from them.
And it will.
The meeting is
confirmed-
tomorrow night,
As confirmed, it will be
Thank
discussed tomorrow night, yeah.
Okay, great.
And it has been.
and probably by the end of the week, we will have their thing officially.
Awesome.
I will ask them to fax it to us so that we have it right away, or email.
Is he
And,
also going to the ZBA at the same time?
For what?
Parking?
Oh,
There is, at this time, there's not an application before the ZBA. The
There's
next
not.
ZBA meeting, which is next week, is only going to be a workshop meeting for them,
For who?
for the
For
ZBA.
Oh, for ZBA, okay.
the only other question is, do we know if he needs historic preservation?
That is actually
You?
something that the board asked me to do, and I still need to check on that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
May I hear all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You were a little bit